The year was 1952. In the forests of Kenya's central highlands, a group of men and women swore an oath in secret. They were tired of watching their land taken, their people beaten, and their voices silenced. These people called themselves the Mau Mau. To the British government, they were rebels. To most Kenyans, they were freedom fighters. This is the story of how Kenya bled, rose, and reclaimed its name. Before all the pain and the rebellion, there was peace. Kenya's land was rich, full of rivers, mountains, and wide open plains. Communities like the Kikuyu, Luo, Maasai, Kalenjin, and many others lived on this land long before outsiders came. They traded goods, herded cattle, and lived by traditions passed down for centuries. There were no borders, just people and the land they loved. But that peace would not last forever. In the late 1800s, something changed. British explorers came first, saying they wanted to map the land. Then came traders, and then soldiers. The British Empire saw Kenya as more than just a land. They saw farms, gold, and control. By 1895, Kenya became a British protectorate. And by 1920, it was a full British colony. Thousands of British settlers came and took over the best lands, the fertile highlands that local farmers depended on. Kenyans were pushed away, forced to work on land that once belonged to their families. It was no longer our land, it was their colony. The British built railways from Mombasa to Kisumu, but it wasn't for Kenyans. It was for moving goods and resources out of the country. People worked long hours for little pay. Taxes were high, and anyone who refused to work was punished. African farmers were forbidden from growing cash crops like coffee or tea. Only Europeans could. Every part of life was controlled. Even voices of protest were silenced. Schools taught loyalty to the crown. Land that was once sacred became property of the government. Kenya was no longer free. It was a system built on inequality. By the 1940s, whispers of resistance began to grow louder. Young Kenyans were coming home from World War II. They had fought alongside the British, seen freedom abroad, and returned to find their own people still treated like slaves. They began to ask questions. Why can't we own our land? Why are we not free in our own country? The British ignored them. So the whispers became anger. And that anger became the Mau Mau movement. The Mau Mau were mostly from the Kikuyu people, but they represented many others who wanted change. They gathered in forests, armed with little more than knives and old rifles. They swore oaths of unity and freedom to fight until Kenya was free again. In 1952, the British declared a state of emergency. Thousands of Kenyans were arrested. Villages were burned. People were tortured, starved, and imprisoned in camps. Jomo Kenyatta, who would later become Kenya's first president, was arrested, accused of leading the Mau Mau. For 8 long years, the forests of Kenya were full of fear and fighting. The British army used brutal force. But even under pain and loss, the Mau Mau refused to surrender. By the late 1950s, the world began to change. Many countries were demanding independence. The British Empire was growing weaker. The pressure on Britain increased as news spread about the cruelty in Kenya. Even some British citizens began to question their government's actions. In 1960, Kenya held talks about independence. And in 1963, under the bright Nairobi sun, the Kenyan flag was raised for the first time. Green for the land, black for the people, red for the blood that was shed. and white for peace. The struggle had ended, at least for now. Freedom came, but not without scars. Over 10,000 people had died. Many families lost everything. And the new nation faced big challenges: poverty, tribal tensions, and rebuilding from the pain of the past. Jomo Kenyatta became Kenya's first president. He called for Harambee, meaning, let's pull together. The country slowly began to rise again. Over the years, Kenya became known for its resilience, a country that turned struggle into strength. It built schools, cities, and a strong voice in Africa. Today, Kenya is one of Africa's most influential nations. It has modern cities like Nairobi and Mombasa, world-famous athletes, and a thriving culture that blends the old and the new. But the memory of colonization still lives in the hearts of many. Some still fight for justice, for the land their ancestors lost, for recognition of the pain their people endured. The Mau Mau oath may be decades old, but its spirit remains, a promise that Kenya will never again be silenced. Kenya's story is one of pain, courage, and hope. A people once chained by empire rose together to claim their freedom. And even now, through every challenge, Kenya stands tall, proud, united, and unbroken. Because freedom was never given to them, they earned it. This is Kenya, a land that remembers its past and walks boldly into its future. If this story moved you, like this video, subscribe for more untold African histories and share it. Because history is not just what happened, it's what we choose never to forget.